Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's June 16, 2025. I want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. By the way, that's the name of a new Weird Al Yankovic song. I think he ripped us off. I'm probably wrong about everything. That's probably been around since the beginning of time. Okay, sorry for the divert. I wanted to also thank David Moss for introducing us to Irene Kurka. Right? You say it
Yeah,
once.
Irene Kurka, but you're doing so good.
Okay, good. This is part 2. We did part 1, Feb 17 of this year. Where in the heck you calling in from?
I'm sitting again in Düsseldorf. How boring. But I have been to Athens earlier in June, but yeah, I was singing and enjoying the city and the Acropolis and all the temples. And now I'm back here and enjoying talking to you.
How cool is that? That is so fun. And yeah, part 1 was a lot of fun. And we're going to dive right into music. Because you're in the new music realm, whatever you want to call that, people probably don't even know what experimental, avant garde, new classical music, orchestral music is. You know, Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. To me, that is an amazing thought to apply to how do you keep and form and keep aesthetic values in the experimental world. I mean,
What a
just the
great.
process, the process of that, or any sort of aspect of, you know, exactly. Sorry to go on. It's like, I think it was Derek Bailey, one of the most experimental guitarists ever, said, experimental music is you don't know what's going to happen next. So is that for the audience or the performer? So any ideas on this, you know, I,
Well, I'm a big fan of this quote by Einstein anyway, in general,
yeah,
because it helps so much in life in general. Because when you're stuck in a situation or in a problem, he's so right. You cannot solve it with whatever caused it, or to do the same loop in your head over and over. Usually, it doesn't get you anywhere. And the other part with contemporary or avant-garde music, you observed so nicely, because when I studied singing or voice in the US, and I first thought I would become like a classical opera singer, but I soon realized, even though I love Mozart and Handel, and I still sing it, but I realized I could not sing this throughout the whole year. I would get bored. And I realized that many people who do contemporary experimental music, they're curious people. So I like it that I can always discover something new about me, about my voice. And also, this whole spectrum has widened so much. I mean, in Germany, we were much more dogmatic in the avant-garde music. I like this in many other countries, that they're freer, but even here, it exploded. There's so many different styles now, and the crazy ones, the funny ones. I mean, you're gonna interview Moritz Eggert, who also does very funny music and contemporary music. I've been singing, but also on the other realm or end of the spectrum, I have been singing Wandelweise, which is very calm music and quiet music after like John Cage. And there's so much in between, and sometimes whatever, it also has pop elements or so. And I enjoy it that I can experience myself in so many different ways, like putting always a new dress on. And and I think many people who are in this area of music, they're just so curious, because it's never the same, and that's the fun of it.
wow, that's so good because it's almost, you're talking as though, and I think the term you like the best is contemporary music. What's the best term you like for your genre?
It's hard because often people, I mean, it's not what I like then the best, it's also what people who I talk to associate with it.
Yeah,
Then we're again in this thing with, yeah, what do you associate with it? Um, but I also like experimental
yeah.
because it's more wider and I do funny things with my voice, or sometimes it also has performance elements, or sometimes I do improvisation. So it's, yeah, it's pretty big.
Now, but then getting an audience. I mean, Nicholas Slonimsky used to do experimental music at the Hollywood Bowl. I mean, he's one of the pioneers. He'd say there would be 12 old ladies in the audience and half of them were sleeping. And he's premiering all the icons of experimental avant-garde music. But is it in Germany or in Europe that you can get grants, that there is a way to make a living being a performer, or do you have to teach too? I mean, can you literally make a living just singing experimental music?
I'm doing quite well. I mean, we have concerts that are paid, and sometimes they're grants, or sometimes the organizers who hire me, they get the grants.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think I'm doing quite well, but I also teach also because I also enjoy teaching,
yeah.
and it challenges me, and my students like it, and so that's fun too. And with the audience, it's so different. I mean, there are places you also perform for very few people. There are places there are many people because they already whatever have their crowd, and yeah,
Is
it's
is it a
different.
bigger audience in Europe than in America, or worldwide you have a pretty good audience?
Well, I cannot say about every country, but for example, I also have been singing 2 years ago or so in Portugal, and I was singing in a hall, and it was packed with 900 people. That's pretty
Wow.
cool for somewhat strange music.
That is super cool. Now, when you say
They built a festival, and it has been there, I think, now for 25 years, and somehow
yeah,
they have the crowd. There are people also traveling there from all over, and I was like, wow, because this is not so often in Germany that you have that many people.
yeah. But how about Ojai, California? Is that known as somewhere you would sing? They have a annual festival there, and
Oh,
I know
great.
this.
I should
There's
apply there.
Oh, you should. Ojai's cool. So when you said teach, do you mean privately or through a college institution or some other setting? What is
Right
your
now, right now I teach privately. I also have been teaching through an institution.
yeah,
And the fascinating thing for me is also that since COVID, I put my students on online
yeah.
teaching, and all of them stayed with it for different reasons, which is interesting. But I now also have students from the US and from Canada, and this only works because we can do online teaching. So this is fun. This is why I'm sometimes also, like, we had this little discussion before with those time changes, and I also realized it's not always everywhere the same in the United States. I also learned there's one states they never change the time, and then they're also have to watch with what is going on in California or in New York. And so I always try to be cautious if there's any time changes that I can meet my students.
Oh, it's extremely confusing, but I'm glad we hooked up, and this is so fun. So I want to go to the audience because you are a performer. I know you started young, kind of more in a theatrical doing plays, and then you found your voice. Leonard Cohen said the only way you can sell a concert is if you put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know. What role does risk play in your creative process?
This is also very interesting. There has been one performer, I don't know who it was. I think it was a famous violin player, even though I don't know the name. And he said there are actually two types of artists. The ones who prepare everything perfectly, and they also deliver it that way. And they also can be, he also named then a few examples. They can be very, very successful, really like world superior superstars. And then there are the other ones that they are prepared too, but they like the risk.
Yeah.
And I'm also more the second kind. I sometimes like to take risk, or I even remember that I once rehearsed with a pianist, and then she would make marks in her score. Oh, you're doing this and this. And at some spots, I said, I don't know what it would do. She looked at me and she's like, you just have to be cautious and awake. It's going to work. And it works because I also have a very, this is probably also because of breathing and singing, a very clear body language. So usually the people who perform with me, they say they can follow me very easily, whatever ideas I bring up spontaneously.
Right. Clear.
So I like that, but I also um, I don't like so much, or I'm challenged if there's too much repetition. So then I also have to challenge myself, and then sometimes I put in a little twist or do it a little faster or slower and just see what happens.
Amazing, because that two or no clear body language. What an amazing thing when you're work. If you're working solo, that's one thing. But this idea of risk involves courage. What does courage mean to you now? You're in front of 900 people. You're performing. You know, you have some risk factor. You like that. You want to be prepared, but you like risk. What does courage mean to you?
Mm, I think nowadays I would say courage is that you do something even if you might feel fear.
Yeah,
And this thing with being on stage, I know that for many people, I think there's statistics what people are afraid the most. And I think speaking in front of people or public is like on the number two or so. It's really
right.
high. People are really, really afraid of it. And for me, it was always the opposite. So when I was a child, even in situations I maybe challenged or not so happy, but as soon as you could put me on stage, it was like I was in a different world. So I was happy. So I guess I just like being on stage.
No, that's good. And you have confidence because I spoke with a rock star and I said that question about risk. And 99% of people say, yeah, risk plays a part in my creative process. He says, I leave risk in the dressing room, which was an amazing thing because he's in demand at being improvising, but also playing a lot of really complex notes. But to me, what he was saying is, I want to appear confident, like I know what I'm doing. And so that goes right along with Viola Spolin. She's an amazing social worker in Chicago who kind of started comedy improvisation, you know, Saturday Night Live, the Groundlings, all that. She did role playing exercises. And she said, if the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it. What role does struggle play in your creative process?
Hmm. I actually don't think so much about struggle, um, which doesn't mean I don't struggle. um, but I guess I like to also look for things that are in a certain flow, or certain things are easy. But on the other hand, I mean, there have been often pieces that are very, very difficult where I need a lot of time or discipline to really prepare them well. So I think I conquer a lot of challenges, but maybe I don't think about it.
Wow, yeah, because that's back to the confidence. You don't want the audience to make to for them to see your body language, because along with your creating, your co-creator, you're showing body language to the audience. So you have to kind of appear like you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I was just talking also about it in general, not
Yeah.
just, I mean, on stage. Probably I also wouldn't like it too much if they see my struggle. But on the other hand, when I do like improvisation or something that's more in the performance area, then I sometimes also create a certain challenge or whatever. I'm breathing very heavily, and I don't know if I would like, I don't know, fall over or something. And then the audience gets into it because it's real. They know it's not faked. And so the different degrees, but maybe then it's a calculated risk, but I need some risk.
That's good. Calculated risk. I like that. And let's talk about silence. Thelonious Monk said silence is the loudest sound in the universe. Especially when you're improvising, how do you know when to not sing? To, to have, you know, George Clinton said funk is the absence of, and Miles Davis talked about the space between notes. How do you know when not to sing?
Well, I think there is silence, and out of silence, the sound is created, and then whatever, you go back to silence. And I've been singing so much Wandelweiser music, so they work a lot with silence and with very little sounds, or very sparely. And that changes a lot because you start listening more. It also gave me actually more confidence and inner stability, even when then I sing Mozart coloratures or more crazy complex music. And I like silence. I'm also meditating. I'm also a person who loves to go into live concerts, but I hardly listen to music at home.
Wow.
And yeah, so it is.
That's
I mean,
good.
if I sing a composed piece, the composer has determined when there's a pitch or a
Right, right, right.
silence.
I'm talking about
And
when
but you
you're with
still
the,
you still feel also or feel the moments that are whatever with your presence that are not where you're not singing. And like in improvisation, it's always interesting because you always make a choice. Am I participating or am I listening? And I think we talked last time about this piece by Stockhausen, the
yeah,
7 days.
love that. You taught me that. That is so
and
good.
and that's the same thing, because he gave you this instruction: as soon as you start thinking, you're not supposed to produce a sound, but before you produce a sound, you always start thinking, because whatever, you get your tongue ready or something. So then what is the question? What do you go for? Is it a certain flow? Is it a certain listening? And yeah,
Well,
it's a very important question.
here's a couple quotes about silence. And if you just want to react to them at all, that's fine. A Wee Wee, the artist, said, "For me, silence is music." Would you agree? Is silence music, or is it something different than music?
I think for me, it's probably something different, but it's also very fulfilling.
Yeah. Here's Bob Dylan. Experience teaches that silence terrifies the most.
Yes. I have something to talk about silence, which I mean, he was, even though he was a very special person, you all know him, Michael Jackson. And I watched the DVD from his last rehearsals from
Yeah,
his last show, but he didn't do this show because he died. And and on this tape, how he reacted with all the other musicians, you could see how talented and what kind of details he looked for. But the thing that also fascinated me in this production was they filmed a part of a rehearsal where I think he had the feeling he didn't get the awareness of his whatever other musicians or dancers. And then he also started in this rehearsal, I don't know if he does this on stage, working with silence, and they really had to react, and then he was still and then would do something else. And this is, yeah, you have to be very aware
yeah,
if you work in this way. And he really wanted to, you have to follow me. And I have the feeling that all great artists have a feeling for silence, even if maybe it's not audible in their music, but they have a feeling for it. And this is what came across to me when I watched this DVD about him.
yeah, I want to see that. A couple more on silence. This is Thomas Carlyle. Speech is of time, silence is of eternity.
Yeah. I mean, you're silent and you speak. And then, I mean, you could then also get whatever philosophic or something. Then the question is who is now talking and who's now listening. And then you're also in silence and presence, whatever.
Yeah. You touched on something, and I wanted to sneak this quote in. This is Tom Waits said, "The best music doesn't want to be recorded." And it's a funny little thing, but you said, I don't listen to music at home because you're sort of like, my life calling is filling these spaces with sound. So I want to not fill space with sound when I'm not doing that, or particularly rehearsing or playing. Any thoughts on that? The best music doesn't want to be recorded.
Well, the question is, I mean, I like recordings, and I mean, sometimes I listen to it. But the question is, can you really record it? And especially also if you have a magic moment in a concert. And music is such a passing thing also. It's not like, I mean, you see my picture, that's just there.
Yeah,
And it's there, and it's there, and it's yellow.
yeah,
But with music, or even our talk,
yeah.
I mean, people can watch the recording.
Yeah, they call it time based. But it's amazing, pre humans having any recording device, was music different? Was it treated more? I think it was treated with more reverence and respected. Now, when we talked about the function of music, since then, I got one more that I'm curious your thought on. To this, Steve Miller said, to hypnotize people to be themselves. That is the function of music. I just thought that, I mean, to hypnotize people, that's one thing. Yeah, music can, but to hypnotize people to be themselves. Any thoughts on that line?
Well, I mean, if you whatever dance or move, I mean, there are so many rhythmic traditions or whatever, shamanic and all that, you can get in a certain state, and maybe you can get closer to yourself. And or there are those how's it called? Kundalini meditation by
Kundalini,
Osho,
yeah,
where you like shake, 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 and then you dance. And it's something where you release something. And if you release something, I mean, animals also shake after they experience something terrifying. Um, I think you can get closer if you
yeah,
use it in a right way. And I mean, we also know that when you listen to music already, there's a lot of brain activity. If you're a musician, there's even more. And if you include your body, there's still more. So those, I think, are very healthy thing. Music, dancing, moving.
yeah. There's a cliche: if you can't say it, sing it. If you can't sing it, dance it. And so this is beautiful because you evoke the Sufi dance, the whirling dervishes, you know, that sort of trance state they get into. So about Pauline Oliveros, which the great composer and accordion player we brought up last time, Frank Zappa was interviewed in 1969. And they said, Frank, you mentioned Pauline Oliveros' work with sound, above the audible and below, creating a mass. Frank said, not that it created a mass, it created something audible. It produced a some indifference tone, which happened to be located within the audible frequency range. By combining something so high you couldn't hear it and something so low you couldn't hear it, it yields something in the middle you could hear. Whether you like that, what you heard in the middle is another question. The concept is brilliant. Can you talk about that, all that some indifference tone, combining something so high and so low that it creates something in the middle?
Well, I want to add, I was lucky that I met Pauline Oliveros. She was
Yeah,
in Cologne, and back to your question, also with silence, what also was very intriguing, that when we started working with her, we would just, or we all had to sit in the room, I think, for 10 or 15 minutes and just enjoy the silence. She's like,
yeah,
I need to be aware what room I'm in, and then we do some sounds. So that was fascinating. And I also remember that a lot of the stuff we did, there were some singers working with her, that there were so many overtones we produced by her yeah, compositions.
yeah,
And that's the same. I mean, they just show up in a way. And I love overtones, but for some people they're too much. And there were some people, they almost, when they listened then to our performance, they got dizzy because of it. And I'm not sure if it's always, like you said, necessary a high or a low note. I also know when I work whatever with flute, it can happen quite easily, or with clarinet. And when, I don't know, the interval you sing with them is so pure, then you suddenly have a like a third pitch appearing.
a third pitch, yes.
Yeah, and I often feel also kind of a weird ring in my ear. And
Yeah,
but then I also know, okay, this is now a magic moment.
with a clarinet, or what's the other instrument? Oh, flute.
Flute.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing.
But I'm sure there are other phenomena like you were
Yeah.
describing, and but those are the ones I have experienced quite a bit, and that's yeah.
No, I appreciate you're articulate and concise, and I really appreciate your time here, because the next question is about time. Why is 4/4 time the most commonly used time signature in Western music?
That is an interesting question because yeah, you articulated it also so precisely in Western music, because in other music, whatever, the Greeks have 7/4 or something. Um, I don't know why we like this very straight thing that so much music is in it. what actually the question I have for that is, I mean, the music I'm doing, we have other time things going on,
Yeah.
whatever 5/8 and blah blah and 9/8 and also in classical music. But what I find fascinating that like in rock pop music, where on some ways everything is wilder, but the rhythm is is even more nice and cute, like the than the classical or the experimental music.
It's more, I miss the adjective. Pop music is more what?
Um, what's the word? It's like the good girl. What if with regard to this time thing? Because there is, I think, is there one? I heard one U2 song or so, like in a three, but even that, it's always 4/4.
Right. You're saying why is pop music always 4/4?
Yeah,
It's
even
so
though they pretend to be wilder than whatever my genre, but
they
their rhythm is
for
4/8.
right, they pretend to be wild because Zappa was the exact opposite. He was playing rock music, but he used wild time signatures. Most rock guys don't, and that's a great observation because this is
And I
I
don't know, do
wanted
you have an answer for that? I mean, the only other thing I know is, and you might talk with Moritz about it because I think I learned some of it through him because in one piece I sang, it was also a very interesting time thing he built, and then he's like, this is like math metal. And then I realized there's such a thing like math metal, and they have weird time things like 9, 7,
yeah.
5 that that's very fascinating. But yeah, the others are very 4/4. So I didn't answer your question.
No, you answered it. All I want is to use these as prompts because you anticipated, you have ESP, what I usually tell people after we talk about this. Because one guy, Wayne Pete, he's a jazz guy who's really into avant-garde music too. He said because we have two hands and 2 feet. So besides being intuitive and easy, 4/4 time might be the dominant because it's in sync with walking or marching or our heartbeat. What time signature do you think our heartbeat is in?
I have no clue.
Right, because some people go, well, it's kind of 4/4. No, it's 5/8. No, it's 3/4. So Captain Beefheart, who's an experimental rock guy, I don't know if you've ever heard him, but he's from the Frank Zappa world, and his rhythms were like drunken sailor rhythms. He had all kinds of weird time signatures. He wanted to vary from 4/4 time, and he called that the mama heartbeat. And he related 4/4 time to fascism. It's fixative. It's so hypnotic, so synthesized. It's dangerous. And disco makes the heart pound faster. He wanted non-hypnotic music to break us out of that canatonic 4/4 time. So
Oh,
so that's interesting how you said, they claim to be wild, but they're really so
they're hypnotic.
yeah. It's like what do they call that? House music.
Mm.
It's like, I mean, it's a endless, Zappa used to call Philip Glass, Steve Reich, all those guys, Looperama music, and only us, we could tell the beat. Most normal people are like, will this ever change? It's the same. And then it became the dominant on every TV commercial for, and every documentary soundtrack is the same sort of Looperama music. So here is Ben Ratliff. He's a music writer. I mean sound as it has long functioned among jazz players as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that It can be heard at best in a single note. So me and you might listen to Miles Davis, and Ben would say in 2 words, oh, he's fragile and pointed. Me and you might listen to The Clash, who you were fond of, you said at one point, and we could go, oh, that's The Clash. They're this and that. If a writer who you really respected was going to describe your sound in 2 words, what 2 words would you go, oh, they got me? They sort of summarized me well.
Pure, um, 2 words. Warm and touching.
Oh, that's good. Warm and touchy, Touchy.
Touching, touching, to touch the audience,
Yeah,
to move them.
touching. Yeah, moving. Yeah, that is so good. Thank you so much. Because I'm curious, tell me one major element of your creativeness that stayed the same and one major element that's changed in the years you've been creative in music.
Well, I think what I just mentioned, this I always had this purity in my sound, and I mean with voice, I mean you're born with something, and even if I would not like it, I cannot change it. So that's me. And that stayed. I mean, it always stuck out and it stayed. And I always could touch people with my art and singing. And I also like that. That's very important to me.
Yeah,
Um, what has changed? I mean, through experience, I got to know myself better, so I can do things that I maybe couldn't have done, whatever, 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. And what also has changed through life is, and maybe for some people it's normal, or kind of common. Um, and in my younger ages, I thought I had to do it like other people, or I was more about following them or trying to fit in all this kind of garbage I say nowadays. And then we're back to this thing with courage, that then as more as I allowed to stick out or do my thing, I got happier, and actually I got more recognition for it, but it also felt better for me. And sometimes I wish I could have found it earlier. But on the other hand, you can also learn by imitating something.
yeah. That's Harold Bloom, The Anxiety of Influence. He said, you absorb your influence, then you abandon them. And it's like, good luck. How do you abandon them? Because that's like, and you saying Morris's math metal. That's like back to Thelonious Monk saying music is math. You just got these formulas in your head and they're rolling around. You go, okay, now I can apply that one. And then I'm like, how do you get rid of those? It's like not easy because it worked before. You form confidence. It worked with an audience, and now it fell flat. That's hard to be okay with falling. You know, that's really heavy. In fact, it's Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Mm, well, I think it's well, I'm a a very sensible person or so. And in earlier ages, I also, or when I was younger, also thought I would have liked to have a thicker skin. But I also realized I mean, it's me. I cannot change it. And on the other hand, it makes me authentic, and it also brings me together with the right people who can take it or enjoy it, and also like a certain openness or vulnerability. And yeah, but it's also to be full of courage and being brave to show yourself in a certain way.
Yeah. Vulnerability is one of the words that just I can never understand completely. I'm like always wanting to understand vulnerability and empathy. Like, what in the heck are those things? And people love to bring them up, but it is like you described it well, because you wanted to have a thick skin, and then you sort of realize, no, I want to be myself, authentic. So vulnerability seems to resonate with that word authenticity. Yeah.
I mean, also maybe you're already very good at that, and sometimes then you don't need to think so much about those terms. I mean, you're
Yeah.
also an
Yeah.
empathetic person, and I think when you're empathic, you just are. I mean,
You
you
just
cannot
are.
fake
Yeah.
it, because
Yeah.
you just feel the other person, and that's just also part of us. And with vulnerability, it's just for me, it's not putting up walls to
Yeah.
try to whatever protect myself, but to just be.
Yeah.
And whatever people make out of it, that's their business,
Yeah.
or whatever they think of me.
That's really good. That's Andy Warhol said, don't worry about what people think about your art, just keep making it. You know, but it's hard because we think, oh, we're making this for other people, and we're involving a community, and we're involving listeners or consumers or whatever, and you if you just ignore them completely, who knows? It's a juggling act. So what's more important, conviction or compromise?
I guess I'm more a conviction person.
Yeah.
um I think it goes back to this thing with we just covered, with the authenticity, that I like to be true to myself. And so um yeah, then I be clear, and hopefully I also have to do with people who are clear. And usually I'm very lucky that in the end we want the same, or are searching for something similar, and then it goes well together. But I also learn to let go of people who in some ways don't fit. I mean, they can be who they are, and they're also precious and valuable. But it doesn't mean that I have to whatever work with them or spend time with them.
Yeah. Well, it seems as though you've been fortunate to work with people that you jive with them, and it's so. Tell me, how do you rate these three elements: luck, skill, and ambition? You've accomplished a lot. How do you rate those three elements? Their role in it: luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Hmm. It's really hard to say. um, I mean, skill is important, but then also to develop it, and whatever, to practice and get better. Um, luck in a ways to meet the right people at the right time. I think that's very important, or you're lucky if that happens. And I'm not sure if I like the word ambition so much, but I would choose the word that you maybe it's the same, that you really stay focused, that even if something doesn't work out or whatever, somebody doesn't hire you or so, you keep going.
Yeah.
But I think it's a different word, even though I don't know it in English right now.
No, that's good because some people go, well, I don't like your three words choices. Some say purpose, destiny, persistence, necessity, desire. There's various
I mean,
words.
persistence, I would like more than
Yeah, persistence.
ambitious. Yeah.
And compulsion's another word that gets brought up sometimes. So, a poet said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in? And it's more metaphorical, like what form is your inner consciousness in? But you know how you can tackle it however you want.
Well, the thing is, we might have covered it last time because so when I speak a lot of English, I also think in English. I
Yeah,
found that always fascinating, and then sometimes I feel that it switches back to German, or then I'm thinking German again. Um, what I have now, and I'm very proud of that, is let's say that I have a more, in a way, a positive self-talk to myself, and
oh,
that
that's
I
good. It's positive.
and that I would recommend because it doesn't help. I mean, I've done that earlier on too, that whatever doesn't work out or you make a mistake, that you beat up yourself.
Yeah,
And I'm very glad that my whatever the inner voices or anything is, it's so much friendlier to me, and I like that.
that is good because the major thing that stood out for part one with you was um I think it was your stepdad saying drop the word stress. And don't beat yourself up. Just keep going. Really,
Hmm.
really great lesson. Two of my film heroes have a mantra: ignore yourself. Jonas Mika says there's no self-expression. In the avant-garde jazz pianist Cecil Taylor says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
Well, I think I'm a vehicle for whatever wants to come through, the music or something. And I more often have the feeling that it's less about me, but the weird thing is maybe it becomes even more Irene if I don't think about it or don't try to be something. And I find that very freeing, and I'm very privileged that I can experience this on stage, or that even sometimes performances can be transcending for myself and maybe not just for the audience.
Can art making, music making be egoless?
Can it make people egoless, the audience
No,
or
no,
me?
no, not make. Can making music, can singing music be egoless for the singer?
It can. I mean, it's maybe not for all because
Yeah.
some people use it maybe for something else, but it definitely can. And yeah.
Is perception reality? I'm glad you're laughing.
Well, I sometimes wonder. It always depends how I just feel or whatever. But yeah, I mean, we perceive this as a reality, but I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, because Lily Tomlin, the comedian, said reality's just a collective hunch. Um, so Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Just an impossible thing, so that they also came true, or
Yeah, well, that's the thing. How do you define what is you know, believing in an impossible thing is sort of a contradiction because you want to believe in things that are possible. So, I mean, it was Lewis Carroll being sort of sly. How can you believe in an impossible thing? But so I just applied the question. People, you know, sometimes say no, they haven't, and sometimes they say yes, and they give me an example of something impossible they believed in.
Mhm. I think I'm always open that the um, what seems impossible is possible.
Right, right. Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion
When you use it for yourself, or maybe step forward, or I don't know, set
yeah,
boundaries, and be really clear what you want and do it.
yes. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
They're both wonderful.
That's great. You know, I like people that say there's no difference, you know, but we want to think, you know, the cliche is that women are sensitive, emotional, men are linear and, you know, too reason oriented. But I love it when people say no, there is none. So really good. So what's the difference between art and science?
Hmm. I think science wants then to get the facts, and is tries to be more precise,
Yeah,
and art can be maybe more open, more flowy, or also more open for interpretation.
yeah,
Like science likes to say this is like this, or we prove this, blah blah. But what they both have in common, that they're researching in a way.
yes. You know, that's how I should ask the question. What is the difference between art and science and what do they have in common? I should really add that because it's sort of, see, Jean Cocteau said, art is science made clear.
Hmm.
And here's another one. I'm curious your thoughts. Chomsky says, we learn more about ourselves from literature than from science.
Like, oh, well, I guess with literature, it's also more about your imagination, and maybe that widens more. But then the question is, what is learning? Is learning that I know some facts, or I know, I don't know, the earth is rolling around and there are some planets, or what is this that I want to learn? And but then on the other hand, I also admire scientists because they're so persistent. They keep going, and also when I come back to my father-in-law, he was a quite known brain scientist, or he still is, but he's not like working anymore. And whenever they discovered something new about the brain, he was so excited, and he would tell me, and now we know this is really working like this, blah, blah, blah. But then he also said, because in a way he was so humble, he said, and I still know that I don't know anything about the brain.
Wow.
You know this much
You
about the
know, because we brought up Albert Einstein so many times. Here's one of my favorites. Einstein said, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science." You know, that's Auden the poet said, "The mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us." But in regards to your father-in-law, I mean, he's saying, no, that activates me, that there's another new mystery that I don't know. He also like, oh, now I know this, but that just opens up the floodgates, because this French archaeologist Paul Binet said, science finds no truths. It discovers unknown facts that can be interpreted 1,000 ways. So it's, even though we think it's, like you said, factual, it's no, it's just opening up facts that can be interpreted, just like art can be interpreted many ways.
Yeah, and I mean, they always have a certain fact, and then maybe years later, I mean, there were times we believed that our Earth is flat, and that's what they believed, and suddenly, oh, the Earth
Yeah,
is round. And I mean, we always discover things, or with quantum physics and so on. And I mean, they keep going, or they always discover what is the most little part inside. And you're like, they found another thing in there. Okay, it's getting even smaller. But on the other hand, the part that they don't know anything about is still there, and it's like whatever 99% they have no clue about. And yeah.
that's funny, because McLuhan said about James Joyce that Joyce has solved numerous problems which science has not formulated as problems. So that's, Tony Conrad. This experimental violinist, Tony Conrad, he said another one like that. Um, Artists break rules that haven't even been made yet.
Yes.
So Utah Phillips is a folk singer and a labor activist. He says anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Mhm. I mean, it should be something, I don't know who it will be in the end, but I assume that most of us want to live with whoever we are living with, or however big you take it, as a family or a city or a country or so. Um, well, I want to live in a very peaceful environment where there's appreciation for each other. And um, so if there would be rules needed, I would like them if I could create this world. Um, if it would be enough to just really long for this and create it by that, then that's fine too. So I don't know who makes the rules, but that's what I would like to be the result of it.
The result of the whoever's making them, because the word freedom etymologically breaks down to exact same thing Utah said. Freedom is giving oneself one's own laws. What does freedom mean to you now?
Oh, freedom can be on many different levels. I mean, freedom is that I can do my art, and I do whatever I want to do in my art, and that I also can pick projects or do projects that fulfill me, and that I don't have the feeling I have to do something. Um, Freedom is, yeah, that I can walk down my streets here and be and feel safe. That's great. Um, Also, that is not happening everywhere, as we know. And yes, I get to know myself better and maybe also let go of interesting thoughts or maybe thoughts that make me tight, then I also feel like an inner freedom. And I
Yes.
like that too.
Inner freedom, that's really important. Louis Buñuel, the film director, said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. Now, most people go, oh, that's great. I love that. One guy goes, no, that's bullshit, because if I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it. So I morphed it into the question, if the cliche goes, the journey is more important than the destination, why do we have to seek or name a destination?
Well, I guess it's the same when you get into a car, you could just drive around. Maybe that's fun too.
Yeah.
And or you put in a goal into this navigation system. And then you're maybe also happy that at some point, I don't know, you arrive at the nice lake or at the sea, um, and maybe it also helps because we have many options how we can live our life to know what to go for because we cannot maybe experience everything.
Yeah. Well, that's not all who wander are lost. The flaneurs were the people in France in the 20s who just sat at coffee shops and drank coffee and didn't care about, they were called psychogeography in Hemingway, and James Joyce said you can find an epiphany in everydayness.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that idea. Just wander and end up at a lake. That's what I want to do. So here's Eartha Kitt, the great jazz singer, said, truth is a theory that is constantly being disproved. Only lies, it seems, go on forever. And this is Marcel Proust's question, on what occasion do you lie?
I'm actually not good at lying. It's so hard to do. And so, on the other hand, um, there are situations where I'm too honest, and I wish I could lie because I sometimes think it doesn't maybe do anything, and it's not that important, and it's very hard.
It's a juggling act. It's tough. I mean, most people say, on what occasion do you lie? And they go, to not hurt someone's feelings, you know?
Yeah, I think it's something like this, but sometimes as I said, it's so hard for me to not speak the truth, so I sometimes hurt the feeling, and then I think to myself, you could have just said something nice, Irene. It's not a big act, and yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So there's a line that goes, you create what you resist. The comedian Bob Goldthwait morphed it into, you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your brain is supersaturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel said, thank God I'm an atheist. So I'm curious your thoughts on this line, you create what you resist. Not you, but like one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
Well, I think it's the same as we mentioned with my former stepfather, with the stress. If you say the whole time it was so stressful and I don't want this, those people are creating it more and more. Or when people tell you all the time, oh, I don't have any money, usually they're the people who don't have money.
Yeah.
They can do whatever they want. So um, even I don't have any like proof for it, and I'm not a scientist, but when I observe how people talk, I think there is some truth in it. And
Yeah,
I feel that maybe you get more of that what you want if you word it differently,
yeah.
or are in this different energy, more the focus on what you want than on letting go of what you don't want. But that is also said very easily. But
No, but I think it's
because
a
I
totally,
also realize there are people, they're like, oh, this always comes to me. I don't know what I'm doing. And it
yeah,
happens to them all the time. But are they framing it because they
yeah.
talk like this?
No, I think the word framing is exactly what you're talking about. It's how you frame it. If you accent the positive, you might get more positive results. If you accent the negative, you might wallow in the negativeness.
I
How do
had
you,
a I had a I had a I have a colleague, a musician colleague, a friend, and she also plays in a very good ensemble. And for a time, they were also kind of in a way competing about stress. They also thought, like I thought years ago, until my stepfather told me, if they tell, oh, I'm so stressed out, I'm whatever, important, successful, blah blah. And then I told her, well, it's the other way. And we spent now, I don't know, I know her for 2 years or so. And I think last year, and her life has changed actually a lot. Um, she has much more gigs also. And she said to me, it's so interesting. Since I know you, I'm in a much better mood and everything is going more smoothly.
way to go? Did you tell her your lesson from your stepdad?
I'm not sure. I mean, I've told her some things, and she's very smart in picking up things, and also when she told me about this dynamics, but it already has changed also in this ensemble.
Yeah.
Then I said, well, let them do their thing. You just go for the joy, and now everything has turned. So,
Well, it might
but
be
maybe that's also not a proof. I don't know.
right, but maybe you're communicating that lesson without actually saying it. That your attitude, she's picking up on your energy vibrations and going, what. So these are 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head, just in a couple words. 1, who started it all?
The creator, God.
2, are we going to make it?
Question is, what is making it?
Yes. 3, where do we put it?
I don't know.
4, who's cleaning it up?
I know.
5, is it serious?
Maybe not.
All right. Okay, a couple more and we're out of here. This has been fun. If you were walking down the street and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
You're very beautiful and you're perfect as you are.
Oh, that is good. Can you forget to die?
Maybe I'm already dead. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, the thing about that question is people don't know if I mean it literally or metaphorically. And that's funny because McLuhan said that all words are metaphoric. So what is the word literal a metaphor for? So if, it's an amazing sort of twisty, the snake eating its tail sort of thing. If a publisher was going to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Irene Kurka.
Very good. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
I like rose.
Rose.
Roses.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
I would take white marble And the first city that came, but I have no clue why, was Rome.
Rome, nice. White marble goes good there. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Hmm. Something good I never had, but I also don't want it.
Yeah, it's good. You never had it, but you don't want it.
But if it's good, I want it.
Yeah. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Well, what I'm very thankful for is the technology we have here, also that I can now talk to you, or I can have my podcast, and that we can be connected with people throughout the whole world.
Yeah. Why did you start your podcast and what have you mostly learned by doing it? What's some like epiphanies or highlights that you could articulate about, what kind of learning or lessons or connections has the podcast enabled you to,
I mean, there's so much I could talk for hours about this, but one thing that was very interesting for me, and I don't know how it was for you when you started doing this, or um, I have been interviewed before as an artist, and now in the podcast, I was then the interviewer. And at first, I thought, easy. And then I was really excited and a little nervous. My first partner was actually Moritz Eggert. And because you have to, when you have your questions, you're prepared, but you also, I think you really have to listen and then also have a feeling how to round it up. And so that I learned something really, really new, which I now like a lot. And it also made me more brave in my normal life to ask more questions, when before I thought, oh my God, I might get on the nerves by asking too many questions. And now I dare to. It
Yeah,
has become much more natural.
that is so good because when people go, because I ask a lot of stupid questions, and it's like, stupid, that's what a question is. You don't know something, that's why you're asking it. So, how can a question be stupid?
But I also realized after I have been doing it, I mean, you have even more
Yeah,
experience, that there were also some questions I was a little nervous in the beginning.
yeah,
And sometimes people also say, oh, I don't like this word or something, but they would always answer something. So I also realized the question just opens up something, and there are no rules. They can answer it however they want to answer it, and that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. That's what I always say. You don't have to answer the question. You can say pass or I don't know, but I don't want you to say that. All I'm doing is using it as a prompt for you to talk. Rebecca Solnit says it so well. Just because you ask me a question doesn't mean I have to answer it.
Mhm.
That's right. But saying I don't know or pass is sort of like, well, you can react somehow, if you want, and if you don't, that's fine. Like they asked McLuhan once, will there ever be silence? And some people get smarty pants with me and they go, and they just let silence ring, and I'm like, now I know you're doing that, but he was basically saying things don't exist on their own. Things only exist in relationship. So when John Cage went in that chamber and said, I want to hear silence, he couldn't hear silence because there is no silence, because you can hear your heartbeat in your nervous system working. But if me and you go in the desert in California and we drive out there, it takes an hour to drive there, and then we walk for 45 minutes, and we sit on a rock, I swear we could hear silence. But it's because the relationship is that we heard the car noise for an hour, then we heard our feet on the ground for 45 minutes, and now we can hear silence. But there is, it's about relationships. So it is fun to ask questions because a lot of questions are unanswerable, and that's okay. It's the idea is to invent new questions. In fact, that's John Cage. I'd say, why is there art? And John Cage would go, that's a very good question. I wouldn't want to ruin it with an answer.
Great.
What is a question that remains unresolved for you?
Mm. Well, there are many things about this existence I might not understand. And as you said before, with if we can forget dying, I mean, I don't know how that will be whenever that moment arrives. So there are unanswered questions, certainly.
Yeah.
That's probably the fun.
Yeah, that's the fun. So, how has playing music shaped your behavior?
Well, I think I mean, then the question is if there's the egg or the hen, whatever is first. You have that saying too, egg and hen?
Oh, what's the first word?
Egg,
Oh,
egg,
egg. Yeah,
egg
egg
and
and
hen.
hen. Yeah, yeah. What's first? Yeah, egg or hen. Yes, yes.
Because I mentioned before, I'm a sensible person, and that makes me a very good musician. And it's good to listen to my colleagues and really make music with them. And but maybe it already has been there. What is also great about singing is that you use your body and you're aware of your breath and your posture, so it's also very healthy. Singing is a very healthy instrument because it's also very symmetric. It's not like whatever playing the flute or something where you might have problems with your posture because it's like just on one side or something.
Yeah,
Singing is very good, and it I think most singers, or I'm at least one of them, they look a lot for their health, that I whatever eat well, sleep well, and all those very basic things, because I think they're very important that I can perform well. But on the other side, it's very good for my health.
yeah. No, that is a great answer because it's like when people are choosing their life calling, it's like, yeah, why don't you become someone who preps food? Because you're going to eat food for the rest of your life. Why don't you do it well and have it your profession? You're going to hum and sing for the rest of your life. Why don't you do that for the rest of your life? Because it's going to help you be connected with your body, especially when you said breathing. I mean, Frank Sinatra said he became a great singer or developed the skill by swimming laps in a pool and being underwater and holding his breath. So it's all about, being conscious of your breath because most of us are not. We just breathe on automatic pilot. And when you consciously breathe, that's what singing is. That's what living is. In fact,
Hmm.
David Moss said it so well. I thank him for introducing me to you. What is the function of music? It's the sound of being alive. That is an amazing answer.
Yeah, it is very amazing. Yeah.
So, two more and we're out of here. Thank you for your time. This is Thornton Wilder in 1928, the playwright. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for hours. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What is it all about for you?
Mm. Well, the thing with what is obvious or what is hidden, I have the feeling that whatever the composers I work with, they do this part for me, and I'm then just performing. And in a way, I don't think then about it, but I'm always open, or I like it when a piece or something I perform opens up different perspectives an audience or listeners can have. So I'm not saying something is just one way. So in that way, I'm open, and it's again like with the questions, it's opening up something, and you discover something in it, and everything you discover in it, or whatever it does with you, whatever emotions it brings out in you, or thoughts, pictures, that is fine. And when I come back to my former father-in-law, he also painted, and he liked painting. He painted so many pictures, and he also wrote books. And he also wrote a book that art is always happening in. I mean, as I said, he's also a brain scientist. It happens in the brain of the observer.
Art is happening in the brain of the observer. Yeah. Yeah. That's McLuhan used the word, the user is the content. So it's how, once you create your art, it's no longer yours. People can use it however they want. You can go, no, that's wrong. It's like, nope, you can't control it. They can use it however they want. Art is in the brain of the observer. That's really good. What gives you the most optimism?
Mm, I just think it's better, or at least for me, it is a different quality of life to go through life with optimism. And as we mentioned before, maybe then also great things happen to me, or I inspire people. And because it's often how we react to a situation, or what story we make out of it. And then it's my choice if I make something horrible out of it, and then my body feels horrible at whatever the whole chemical reactions to this, or if I can choose the lighter side, and
Yeah.
then maybe get more of the lighter side, or maybe see more of the lighter side. And then I also have the chemicals in my body that goes with the joy and being open, and then usually people are also more healthy. So
Yeah.
but you could talk to me about that in, I don't know, 20 years, and we will see where I
No,
am
let's
then.
let's do another podcast like in 5 or 10 years. That's always fun. I've done that. That's great artists. I did one 10 years and then 10 years later. But this has really been fun, and I really appreciate your time and energy and your music. And what you just said reminded me of Brian Eno's new book on art. He said that play, and this is what you do, you play music, but you're disciplined, you work at it. Play is how children learn, art is how adults play. So it's sure been fun spending this time with you. Wilhelm Reich, when the first question I asked you in part one was, what is the best thing for a human being? Wilhelm Reich said, the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the
Mm.
last question, what gives you the most optimism, is what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. So really, it's been a delight spending this time with you, and I really appreciate your enlightening me and teaching me so much. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I learned a lot too.
And keep the suggestions coming. I look forward to interviewing Morris, and if there's anybody else, basically they don't have to be famous or do anything special. It's just a willingness to talk for 90 minutes, which is a
Okay, I
lot.
will think about it.
Yeah, but I'm glad you hooked me up with Morris. I'm really looking forward to
You
that.
will
That's
have so much fun with him. He is
Yeah,
great.
I can't wait. So I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, and I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.